this time, right now, is something very, very special. The celebration and a retrospect of Orgy's amazing sophomore 2000s Vapour transmission with the iconic and original guitar duo, that being Amir Derakh and Ryan Shuck. A duo responsible for a sound that was definitely ahead of its time, so unique and genre bending that there still really isn't anything else quite like it. Gentlemen, thank you for your time and energy and joining the Life is Peachy podcast to look back on the 25th anniversary of Vapour Transmission.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It makes us feel very important.
You are very important. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Because this is just such an honor, and on behalf of the fans, for making this happen, to taking the time to do this, because, I mean, a lot of people talk about Candy Ass and a lot of people talk about Vapour Transmission too, but it is that exciting sophomore that really did feature a lot of magic and some phenomenal songs. I like to throw all the guests straight into the deep end, with the first question. It's a bit of a vague one, but maybe also it has a specific answer. When you hear the sentence, Vapour Transmission, 25th anniversary, what is the first thing that comes to mind?
Wow, 25 years? Holy
I'm old.
Shit. Yeah, how old am I? Yeah. Yeah.
It's like a kid, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you got a kid, he's not a teenager anymore. He's like trying to be an adult.
I think the coolest thing is to think that, you only talk about 25 years of this thing when the thing has some sort of impact. And I actually feel like it's really, really cool. And I've definitely noticed a resurgence, certainly, with all this kind of I know with the new metal resurgence and all this kind of stuff. I don't think Orgy's a new metal band, but we were part of that movement. So we'll always be sort of married to those acts. Just like Marilyn Manson will too. Marilyn Manson is not new metal, but we all kind of came up in the same world of Korn and Limp Bizkit and all this kind of stuff. And so I'm totally cool with it. But the fact that people are talking about, these projects that we started 25 and 30 years ago is really, really cool. And the fact that people come up to us and tell us still how modern it sounds and how they still listen to it, literally as much as they listened to it 25 years ago is, it's just shocking to me. And it feels awesome. It feels like it had some impact.
Yeah, I think
feels important. It's cool.
I think that, we really knew what we didn't want to sound like or do, musically. And it was more about, creating something that was really exciting to us. I don't think that we ever thought that people were going to really get what we were doing, to be honest. I think we were having a lot of fun with it and really kind of going off the rails and really just experimenting and trying things. What was interesting about the second record, though, is what I always felt is that we really kind of created the sound on the first record. So the second record really was just a progression from that. We really had a sound already. So it was really, in my opinion, it was about trying to write better songs. I still think we could have had better songs on the record.
Agree.
But there are some good things about the record, and there's definitely some avenues we went down, and we definitely tried more stuff. The sound was already kind of there, which was cool. And there's definitely some highlights, I feel like. There were definitely some highlights in this record. I mean, the process of it was kind of on another level from the first record, though.
Yeah.
Like how the journey to actually make that record. I'm sure that's probably one of your questions, so I don't know that I want to get into all that yet. But it was an interesting journey. I mean, the first album was definitely an interesting journey, too. It started with demos and then moved into, Josh's garage. And we also had the ability to use NRG Studios, which we also utilized even on the second record. And then many other studios. But this one was definitely a little more out of control in the way that it was created. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's the fun thing about this question as well, because it already opens up into where the scope of this like album and this conversation can go, which is really, really great because like I asked this question and then within the answer there's all these things I'm like, oh yes, we're going here later. Oh yes, I have a question
Hmm.
about this later. And one of the ones that I'd like to expand on would be something you were leaning into about the comparison between the two albums. Like what did you take from the experience of Candy Ass? What were the things that you took with you towards the writing and recording of Vapor Transmission?
Well, one of the things was that we got to tour a lot. So
Hmm.
obviously, being able to play the songs and seeing how they work or didn't work live, that was really helpful for the second record. I think we learned a lot from that because I mean, most of those songs from the first record worked pretty well. Some of them not as much. So, but that was a big part of it. Obviously, we had some hits. Although our biggest song was a cover, was not a song that we wrote. But even the songs like Stitches and like we almost had Platinum as a single.
Mm.
Probably should have done that. I don't think it would have hurt anything. Um, but I think our songwriting definitely got better on the second record. We kind of, the first record was obviously highly experimental. It was meant to be a statement. It was, we all, like I said, really knew what we didn't want to sound like. And that just sent us down a course of finding what we were going to sound like, and there was a lot of experimenting with gear and styles and programming. And I think on the second record, a lot of that was already figured out.
Yeah.
So we kind of had all these, all of our gear that we used in the studio was now in these giant refrigerator racks. And there were even more, we were adding more things to it now because technology was starting to catch up. The first album, there were a lot of technology type mistakes that we made as far as performing. We were using V drums, which really no one had used in the setting that we were using them.
Mm.
And they didn't work very good. So we had to learn some hard lessons about that, about how to trigger drums and things like that. But by the second record, we really had the whole drum kit was like a machine. It was like a transformer drum kit where Bobby had all these triggers, but he had real drums and we had samples playing. I
Yeah.
mean, it was actually quite tricky what Bobby was doing. It was not easy by any means. But the sound really came together, especially live. And I think, the whole process of that journey definitely helped with all of that.
Mm.
And I do think in some ways that the second record is better. But I did wish that we could have written some better songs. There are some good songs, in my opinion, on that record, obviously. And I feel they're strong. But it was like, it felt held back a little bit to me. Like we could have, I always kind of wished it would have gone just a little farther. And we never really got to achieve that, in my opinion.
It could be a vague question, but what would you consider then would be some of the things that made you feel like it was held back, or there were some songs that just didn't reach their full potential?
Well, I think Eva was a song that didn't reach its full potential for sure. I think it's a good song. That song actually started with a bass riff that Page had been doing even when we were doing our first record. He had always been playing that doom dum ding dum. He was always playing that. It was like a little rehearsal practice thing.
He still does it.
He still does it to
Yeah,
this
still
day
does it.
because we all just kind of.
It was just like a Page riff. Like
Yeah.
that was,
Right.
and Page is full of those really cool riffs. Page is the kind of guy that will, during rehearsal or whenever
Yeah.
you're just hanging out, he'll just start kind of playing this thing and looking at you.
Yeah.
Like, and because I think he knows, hey, this is kind of a hooky thing, and those things become songs, or they don't, but. In Eva's case especially, that would be the most glaring example of like he would just be playing this riff all the time.
We kind
and
of
you're like, that
always
sounds like a song.
Yeah, we kind of always knew because when we were rehearsing for touring on the first album, he was always kind of playing that, and I think we started messing with it, and we always kind of knew like, yeah, this is something for our next record. And I feel like that song is really cool. Like
Yeah.
it's got so many cool elements, but we were actually really trying to make that something even more, but I just don't think it really achieved it. I still think it's a great song. Um,
It's
and then,
interesting
some
you
of the
say that
other,
as well, because Eva
yeah.
does sound like a song that is more on the
Mhm.
album, and it sounds almost like that anthemic arena song.
I
So
agree.
it's crazy to think, oh, in a way you're not completely satisfied with it because you wanted to push it even further.
It
Um,
did.
yeah,
There were
wow.
things about that record that I wanted to push further personally. And I just don't think we got there. I still think it's an amazing record. I'm very proud of it. Um, but yeah, it was a struggle to get that record, to where it was. I mean, we worked really hard in multiple locations
Yeah.
over I don't know how much time, but I guess it was
The
good
better
part
part
of
of
a
a year.
year,
Yeah,
probably,
better part of a
right?
year.
Yeah, probably a good part of a year. The other record had a little more time to develop because we were doing demos very early on, and a lot of those demo bits ended up on the first record.
Mm.
So, there were things that had a long time to develop, like Stitches, Fetisha. Those were a couple songs that were in the original demos that we did before we were even a full band. So,
Yeah, wow.
um, yeah, so they had some time to develop, and some of the other songs were kind of in the process and whatever. And Blue Monday was just a total accident,
Yeah.
fluke. Jay and I had always wanted to do an '80s cover, and it was kind of becoming a thing at the time. Um, and we had actually tried a few different covers, but that one ended up being the one. I mean, we obviously got very lucky, but we honestly didn't know how good it was until much later, because the whole process of putting that song together was absolutely nuts.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But, we're not talking about that record. So,
Well, I mean, that's the thing as well, isn't it? It's like inevitable to not reflect on or acknowledge the past, especially like when it plays an impact leading into what comes next. And you're talking about before playing live and how that had a big impact on kind of the thoughts and feelings towards writing for the new album. Like it's inevitable, of course, not to kind of
oh, yeah.
mention the Family Values tour.
Hmm.
And the question I had about that was not per se to be like, oh, what are your memories from that tour? Or let's talk about the tour specifically in that regards. But I think more towards that live aspect, like very early on, your first tour is kind of playing these huge arena shows, obviously in front of a lot of audiences that perhaps, most likely hadn't heard your music yet or even met your band name at that stage.
Hmm.
I'm sure that must have played a massive impact on seeing or experiencing how those songs were received by the public. And that must have also played a part in really shaping kind of
I'm going
how
to
you
let
feel
Ryan
about
answer
writing.
this one,
Yeah,
but I
yeah,
just want
cool.
to say that when we initially went out, we fell flat on our face. Like, we actually were failing big time.
Really?
And we had to get our shit together really quick. And if it wasn't for
Corn
Corn
Mm.
helping us.
helping us with the sound and everything,
We would have been fucked.
we were actually contemplating packing up and going home. But I'll let you
Yeah.
kind of dive into
Well,
the
I was
rest.
just going to back up what you were
Yeah.
saying and say it maybe a different way. And that is Vapor Transmission, it was heavily informed by the creation of Candy Ass. And then you pour on top of that, like a band that had never toured together and had never played shows together. We did a couple showcases for labels, which got us our deals, right? Kind of showed that we could do it. And I think we were all shocked that, wow, this actually sounds like a band. Because we weren't a band. We were like we were weird guys that
Well,
did
Jay and I
music,
were
you know?
producing and making records and whatever. Yeah.
And we'd all played in different bands and maybe even different bands together. But I had just met Amir and became really really good friends with Amir very very quickly. And Bobby was a little late to the game in terms of drums. We had Eric on there, first.
On the demo.
So it really was all these different incarnations. But then to record Candy Ass, which was this gigantic drug-fueled experiment, you know what I mean? Like, we were just, we did these demos that were extremely promising. We definitely were like, wow, this is actually kind of good. This is weird. Like, I think we have something here. And then started putting together a band, and the demos evolved into like album material. We all went up to Tahoe and lived together and all worked on this, crazy, constantly partying, working on music all the time, disappearing, just very crazy thing. None of this has to do with performing live. None of it. All of it has to do with like, can we fucking get a record done? And miraculously, we got an album done. And we all, I think, felt that it was unique. It was different. For me, that made me really happy because I probably was introduced to the band because of my involvement with Korn and the fact that I'm a writer on Blind, all this kind of stuff. I think that made me a little bit desirable. But I think it was weird that I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do weird music. I wanted to do something new. And I liked Amir because he was like, Jay was like, hey, Amir's the best guitar player ever. Let's have Amir. And Amir was like, yeah, I don't want to play guitar. We were like, what? And he's essentially saying, I'm going to be the guitar keyboard player. And so we were all kind of like, well, that's weird, and he was had conviction about it. He was like, I don't know that I even want to do this again unless I can do something weird and different. Well, I loved that because I wanted to do something new. I knew that Korn was this thing. You cannot touch it. So don't touch it. Let's go a different direction and make something heavy and cool, but let's bring in all the elements that I grew up on and all the stuff that we love. We love Duran Duran, New Order. We love Depeche Mode. I'm a massive Depeche Mode. It's like one of my favorite bands ever. So I'm like, let's take that and make that something that could perform with Korn. And that was sort of like this idea. Now, I know it sounds like I'm veering off, but I'm not. This dovetails into, now you open up for Korn in arenas. That's our second or third show are in full arenas with Rammstein, Korn, Limp Bizkit, and Ice Cube. So the pressure cooker's on. And we came out there and really didn't know we knew how to play all our parts, but that's not being a band. Playing your parts, like you better know how to do that. The making Orgy sound like Orgy, really come across correctly, that's what makes a band. That's why the original band was special. That's why it sounds the way it sounds. That's why when you go back and watch videos of that band live, it sounds like nothing else. So you can learn it in your room or go play it live, and it won't sound the way it sounds when Amir and I play it, even in Julian K. It's just going to sound like Orgy. And that was through this trial by fire for a year or two of touring, giant shows, and having to figure out on the Family Values tour how to turn this into a band that was doing all this weird stuff without live drums, synth guitar, guitars with like just all these effects. I had, like Amir said, a refrigerator full of pedals.
So he had a guitar that sounded like a keyboard.
Yeah.
We had a bass player who sounded kind of like a guitar. And then you have me who's just kind of doing something that's just doesn't weird. Exist anywhere, right?
No one is doing it.
And then you've got a drummer playing electronic drum pads.
Yeah.
And
which no one was doing.
And then you get these people, sound men and whatever, and they're used to like 3-piece bands with
or they're used
guitar,
to Korn.
bass, drums, or whatever it is, and it's just like they didn't really understand what we were doing, and that's not their fault.
No.
It's like we were actually making it difficult for them in a way. But in order for us to do what we were doing, that's how it had to be. And Korn understood that.
Yes.
And so after a few of these shows where we, literally...
shit the bed.
Totally. We finally had this showcase. And the showcase was highly important.
This actually has to do with Vapour Transmission.
Yeah,
I'll get back to it. I'll let him tell the story. That's good.
And the showcase, MTV, everybody was there. And we had our own sound guy, and we were able to have a sound check. The most important thing.
An actual sound check.
An actual sound check.
Where people walk up and go, what is this fucking drum? There's no drums here. I've been having trouble with this every night. Like, what is this thing that the guitar player over here is doing? He's not playing guitar. They're just weird sounds coming out. What is this synthesizer? Oh, wait a minute. There's 6 guitar tracks, not 3. Yeah. Oh, shit,
So, needless to say, the show was amazing.
Crushed it.
And everyone was there, Limp Bizkit, Korn, like the label,
everyone.
MTV, and everybody got it. Cool. Like at that moment.
We got it.
Yeah. And so Korn went to everybody and said, we need to give Orgy a sound check every night.
Yeah.
Even just, 10 minutes, whatever it takes, hold the doors, whatever, we need to give them a sound check so that this can work. We've seen it work now. So, I mean, thank you, everybody in Korn.
Yeah. Having our backs, Jonathan, David, like having
everybody.
Our backs. Yeah.
So they totally, and they still do to this day.
Yep.
Thank you so much for doing that, because I don't think it would have happened if we couldn't have gotten past that, honestly. So, but we can move past that now and move on to other things. But as far as the Family Values Tour goes, that's what, it was rough for us at first, but we ended up winning in the end of it, but at the end we came back and we actually didn't have a hit after that tour. Stitches went out first and it wasn't a hit. We hadn't sold enough records that the label, was like, no one was happy. But guess what? We had Blue Monday up our sleeves.
So basically, you got it with that rocky start and the fact that Candy Ass wasn't the Candy Ass that everyone thinks it was yet, right? When that came out, a lot of people told us that our guitar sounded stupid. That was the word, stupid. That they sound like a weird broken bass guitar. Like it was weird. Like people were laughing at us. It was
fucked up.
And people told me that Jay was like, what is this, like fake European? Like, does he think he's from UK? And it was just because we wanted, Jay's pronunciation and the way that he was singing, he wanted to make it different and unique, so it wasn't trying to have an accent or anything like that. We all backed. Everything we were trying to do was unique. They thought we looked stupid. They were like, why are you painting your nails? That's gay. What are you doing?
Space suits and makeup.
Yeah, so basically that was sort of like where we were in the beginning. And then fast forward, we start figuring out, like, the sound starts working live. Like we start translating live, and people are starting to show up at shows looking like us and like asking us how we're making these guitar sounds, and the tide starts turning. So the way this dovetails into Vapour Transmission is, I think the most important thing to keep in mind for Vapour Transmission is that you had this experiment, which then became accepted, and we had some hits, and it broke, and we had MTV and all this kind of stuff. And keep in mind, we played probably 300 shows. We played for almost an entire year worth of shows. We were gone for almost a whole year and then some. That radically defined the band Orgy. It made all of our tones and everything we were doing, we became better at it. I was extremely confident in the fact that, this is what my guitar does. I know how to do this. Amir was really confident. He expanded on the on the guitar synth live. He was doing things with the laser reflector finder where he could control the envelope and stuff with his neck of his guitar. And we were just taking the whole thing. It's like you make this experiment, it turns out to work, and then live we all sort of perfect what it was we were doing. Page's tone became, and his playing really became like the way the bass sounds in Orgy. It wasn't this thing where, in the studio, the way Orgy works is any one of us are cool with picking up the other person's instrument and playing. That was always the vibe. Jay was totally cool with me singing. There was no issue with that. It was encouraged, and that's the way we still write to this day. That's the way we, in Julian K and stuff like that, we're still like that. We still, if you're in the room and we can't figure a part out, I will hand the guitar to you.
Which is interesting that you say that, because on Vapour Transmission, we had people that we used to call lurkers. Yeah. And some of those lurkers actually contributed to a few of the songs on the record because they happened to be at the right place and they were doing something that we were like, oh.
That's cool.
It's like our buddy Kenny, who is a drummer, was jamming out on the drum kit one day, and I'm like, that is a very cool beat. we need to write a song around that, and that became the Odyssey.
Yeah. So
Wow.
Yeah.
So it was very open, but the point of this is that we started really owning our sounds. So in the studio, both studio experiences, it was very open. It was very, everyone could write whatever. Like it was okay. And that's always been like that. But on stage, we very, very much became this band, and it had a sound. Even though Bobby wasn't playing live drums, I'll tell you right now, we just did like a New Year's Eve thing where the guys were all in town, and we did like me, Bobby, Amir, and Paige played a couple of Orgy songs just to celebrate New Year's. And I got to tell you, even on an acoustic set, Bobby sounded like Orgy. Mm-hmm. It sounded just like the Orgy stuff. So it's nutty you really have to understand that the way people play and the way people do stuff has this sound, has a tone. So Bobby started really owning his whole situation and the samples and really making that into something that we could play and express. And everyone just started owning their vibe. Jay became very confident in his performance and his voice and the unique things he was doing. And it was just an amazing thing. So then you take us off the road from touring arenas. You have hits and success. So now we have a real budget. Like budget was kind of like, we're able to spend money. And we're all pretty confident that we know kind of what we do. That is essentially how you end up with Vapour Transmission. And I agree with Amir. I think that the songs, I think we could have gone further. And that's, there's a million reasons why. I don't know that it's even going to be something we'll be able to identify right now. And I don't know if it matters. It's just like,
it's like Candy Ass. To me, I feel like we did about as much as we could do with that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, I feel like, like I said, we didn't know exactly where this was going to end up. And I feel like for, what we did and the amount of time and all that, I don't think we could have done that record better. Mm-hmm. But I do think we could have gone a little farther on the second record. And there's lots of interesting elements that I think we just, like Ryan said, we just started owning it. Mm-hmm. So at this point we
were confident.
We were owning it, and we were now confident in what we were doing, which allows you to kind of expand.
I think that's why we feel like we could have gone further, because we weren't trying to figure out our sound. Whereas the first album, weirdly enough, we were trying to figure out how to sound different. Yeah. We really were. We would be doing something that might be great. Another band might be like, that's a fucking awesome song. And we might trash it because it doesn't. We still do that in Julian K. We'll be writing something that might be a hit for another band. And we'll be like, you know what, that's just not, we are this other niche. We need to be true to the brand we created. And we need to kind of keep it in this direction.
And speaking of Bobby too, on the first record, we were using V drums, but we were using real cymbals. Mm-hmm. So Bobby would play, the V drums, but we would, record the live cymbals, but we didn't have live drums yet. The second record, we actually, after we programmed everything and, built all the songs, we actually went in the studio with Bobby with a real drum set, and then had him lay down drums for all the songs. So that was a big difference from the first album, is that not only do you have all these electronic elements, but now you actually have a live drum set being mixed in with all of that as well. So, we had a little bigger budget, we had more time, which, can be good and bad.
Good and bad.
So, but I think in that case, that actually elevated that record in a way that, wasn't on the first record. Having Bobby, behind a drum set, playing as well as the electronics and everything else, really kind of elevated that record to me. And I think also for live, that also helped, having that element as well already be there,
Yeah, and you're talking about owning the sound and then that coming through on Vapour Transmission. I think when it comes to Orgy, a lot of fans would agree it almost goes hand in hand, like the ownership of the visual aspect of Orgy as well, and that visual aesthetic. You mentioning before, sometimes in the early stages that could be to the detriment of the band, because people not really understanding like, what the hell are these guys doing? Why do they look like this? Also, why do they sound like this? But I really feel you could say there was an ownership in that as well, coming into Vapour Transmission, even pushing that dark sci-fi aesthetic, or however you want to label it. But I even just remember feeling like with Vapor Transmission, you all were kind of like five. I think maybe superheroes is the wrong term, but like characters almost. It was like
Yes.
so far pushed in a really exciting, awesome way. Um, can you talk a
Funny
little bit
enough, that
about
was
that?
actually thought about from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Right.
We definitely, even before we ever made the record, even going into some of our first photo shoots, we had the whole Kiss thing in mind from the very beginning. That everybody was going to kind of have a thing, and like you're saying, by Vapor Transmission, it was kind of like we caught the ball now, and we're going to run with it.
Yeah.
You know, like we really were just like, yeah, this is it. This is what makes us different. People are digging this whole sci-fi, gothic sci-fi hyper look that we're doing. So give me the ball now, and I'm gonna run. The idea was to make a home run, of course, but we did pretty good on that record still.
I think that I was a hairdresser before the band, and I was playing in bands and all kind of stuff, but I did photo work and all this kind of stuff and worked for brands and things like that. And when I joined this band, we pretty quickly, we all kind of knew we wanted to have this different look and so on and so forth. So some of that kind of would obviously fall towards me. Some of the hair, I just started noticing that fans were, weirdly enough, a lot of, I think Amir and I's hair was, I had bleach blonde hair, spiky, and he had this bleach black thing. They were just very graphic, like they were very easy to sort of, I think, latch onto. We had a lot of fans that would show up with our hair and, at shows and outside the bus and everything. And I was like, okay, this thing that we're trying to do, this worked. People are definitely
It's resonating.
We have this thing where I see Paige's hair, I see Jay Gordon's hair, I see my hair a lot. I've seen these white spot, the way that I would do the spikes, and I see a lot of girls would have Amir's hair, which was like very hard thing to do. So it's very intentional. It's not like I just happen to do it too. These are extremely intentional things, and then they come to our shows dressed like us. So that's what I remember I used to do with Kiss. Like I was like, oh my God, how can I get my clothes to kind of look more like their outfits and everything? And that's what we wanted to achieve. And I think that we started seeing that was absolutely happening on Candy Ass. And so for Vapor Transmission, a huge part of Vapor Transmission was I had these different books. Like I'm a huge sci-fi guy. We all are. I was a comic book collector and everything, and I'm into art and graphic design and all this kind of stuff. I had some Star Trek, like deep books and Star Wars books, and just of the deeper, like nerdy knowledge that are not necessarily even affiliated with the brand, crazy nerd stuff,
Yeah.
And I have design books and stuff of their symbolism and the different languages and all this kind of stuff. And you might notice that their symbols, everyone has like a unique symbol and everything in that design. And even on Amir and I's fretboards and stuff, we have these unique symbols that are all tied into the mythology of Vapor Transmission.
We actually
ORGY.
created an alphabet.
Yeah, so we created an alphabet, and we used some of these books that I had that with examples of iconography. I don't know how to say that word. Iconography.
Yeah.
Woo! But you can see even for different things that I do, I'll take things that I think are important and cool and break down the word into like designs or runes. And I don't know why, I just like that shit. I think lots of bands like it, right?
Yeah.
But I think that it wasn't really happening in the era that we were doing it. It may have happened before, it's definitely happening afterwards. But when we did that because we definitely saw that what made Orgy special was the fact that fans liked the whole band. They were really, you had like a Paige cadre, you had like a Bobby cadre, you had like Jay, like people who just loved, Jay, you had like Ryan, like mega fans, you had Amir, you could see them. And again, that was like this Kiss thing. And I think with Vapor Transmission, it was very much, the art and the design and everything was very much in line with the music and us understanding these are our strengths. These are the things we want to expand on.
I even started creating completely unique guitars, which started from the Blue Monday video. I had one, but I was doing these crazy, starship looking guitars, so everything was just like we were just running with it, big time, and it worked by that point, and the record was tough though, making the
Yeah,
making the record was tough because, you know, it was easy to kind of fall back into, you know, creating some of the stuff that we did on the first record. But I know for myself personally, and I know Ryan felt this way, and I know Josh felt this way too. You know, we really wanted to have songs. And I know that our label and our management and everybody was kind of like, okay, you guys have a cool thing, but we need songs. And, you know, there were things I think that was some of the harder parts, was that, you know, we actually started the record at this house that Korn was living in for a time. I think they were all just living there while they were making their...
Like a pre-production house.
Yeah. I don't think they were actually writing or doing anything there. I think they were just living there and working at a studio nearby. But we ended up taking over that house, which was on Doheny in Hollywood. And we kind of moved in there with all of our racks and all of that stuff. And we started writing, but, you know, the bulk of the record really didn't come out of that. I think you know, probably my most memorable moment of being at that house and working was Paige taking the Dymo labeler, because we're like crazy, especially me. I label everything with those little Dymo stickers. Paige went around the entire house and put Dymo stickers on everything that's super obvious, like the wall. He'd put a sticker on it that said the wall, the door. Like
light switch.
Yeah, light switch. He went around the entire house and did this one night. So, I mean, this is the kind of shenanigans that was going on. Meanwhile, we need to write songs. Yeah. And, you know, there were a few things that came out of that session. I remember Dramatica was definitely started there. I know there were a lot of other little ideas that we started, but I don't really remember any of the...
It was like a drive of stuff we did there that got lost, I think, unfortunately. We had like Superficial Magneto. We had all these different things, because we were kind of, in a lot of ways, we all got a bunch of new equipment, and we started kind of like learning the effects and figuring out what we were doing. And then we ended up going to the bigger house and doing the bulk of the work there.
Yeah, so then we ended up, okay, well... We didn't really come up with too much there. And then we thought, well, maybe we need to get away from Hollywood like we did on the first album, which really didn't make that much difference leaving. You know, we were still in California. So we went to the Valley and we got this huge house, which I can't remember, but was it Ja Rule or some rapper used this house as like his cribs. Later on, so it was
the guy with the bleached hair that had that.
I can't
remember.
Maybe it might have been him. Might have been him. Yeah, it was one of those guys. But anyway, so we ended up getting this huge mansion out deep in the valley of San Fernando Valley.
It was in Encino, I think.
Encino, yeah. But that's part of that. Yeah. So anyway, we moved all of our stuff in. There was a gym that was separate from the house. It was like a separate little glass room. Honestly, not the best place to, record in. But we set up all of our stuff in there, and you can see this in some of the behind-the-scenes videos, like in the Transglobal and whatever. It was a gym, and there's still gym equipment in there while we're working. But we set up the, Bobby's drums, the V drums. We had all of our live rigs in there, and the recording rig and all of that. And that's really where the bulk of the record was created over, I don't know how many months we were there. Yeah. But it got pretty out of control. I mean, most of those sessions were all-nighters. Most of the songs that, were anything really were all-nighters or multiple-day sessions, where people might be sleeping through part of those sessions. And other people would be working, and then other people would come back and work, and those people would sleep. I mean, it was crazy. Yeah. And I think even at one point, Josh actually checked out.
No, he went home. He was like, this is just crazy.
Yeah, he went home.
Really?
Like, he couldn't stay there anymore because he was just like, this is too nuts. Yeah. And Jay and I actually had a very famous Y2K party during the making of that record. which cost us both quite a bit of money in damages and all the party stuff that we bought at Costco. But we had a party that was pretty legendary.
Yeah.
And all of this while we're making a record. Yeah.
Well, and Vapor Transmission, sounds so polished and cohesive in many ways as well.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of work that went into getting it to that point. There's a lot of people that were involved in all the records that we did. We were very lucky to be surrounded by lots of super talented people. Anthony Valsic, Foo, who's a part of Julian K. We actually brought him in full time on that record. We had only just met him during the mixing of the first record, but we quickly, realized what a hidden little gem this guy was.
Yeah. You can't discount or exclude like his contributions to any of our music, from Orgy to Julian K.
Right.
Julian K, we just made it more formal. He's part of our band. In Orgy, he was largely doing a lot of that same capacity. So as an engineer and a guy who's doing this, he's also really actually writing, programming, and making keyboard parts work. And it's a really, really big deal. And you can't ever discount the things that these guys do, the contributions that they make. It's all really, really important. I would almost say that in a lot of cases they're, band members at some point, like that level of involvement. You know what I mean? You have to be kind of honest and not sit here and say that, oh, everything's because of us. It's not. It's not. Everyone did this. Everyone created these albums, and there might be different songs that I might have been more involved in, or Jay, or Amir, or whatever, or Josh, but it would be silly for us to not say that like someone like Foo didn't really contribute some. Actual.
Yeah, no, well, he actually has songwriting.
Yeah, so actual songwriting
on one of the songs. But yeah, I mean, the thing is a lot of times, these songs wouldn't exist without these other people.
Yeah.
Like I said, as crazy as this is, and now of course I'm jumping ahead a little bit because we also continued working. Jay rented a house that was in North Hollywood, and we actually continued working and writing there. And the song like The Odyssey was one of the songs that was actually created at that house.
Eyes Radio Lies.
Eyes Radio Lies. The actual Vapor Transmission intro is done there. There was other things, but that example of the Odyssey, there was a thing, like I said, one of our old buddies, he's a drummer, happened to be there, and he was playing this beat, and it was awesome. And I was like, that could be a song. Now, imagine if Kenny wasn't there and that didn't happen. That song would not exist. It would not.
Yeah,
so,
when you think of the Odyssey and that drum intro, that's like a highlight on the album in many ways, right?
Right. I mean, of course, there's a loop basically that he played, and then the rest of it was all done by us, but still, that song wouldn't exist if Kenny hadn't jammed out that drum beat. I happened to be there that afternoon or whatever, that song wouldn't have happened. Something else would have been written, right? But that just happened to happen, and it became this like really cool thing. And the funny thing about the beginning of that song, when you hear that drum beat, that's actually a recording of a headphone. So when you hear that weird filtery drum thing that starts the song, I actually stuck a microphone on a headphone because I was like, that sounds so cool.
Yeah, it does.
So I just recorded that, and we ended up using it just for the very beginning of the song.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
When you're commenting on how polished it still ended up sounding, when you're learning right now that it was absolute chaos. Again, that's why I thought it was so important to kind of highlight that the band became a band.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a bunch of guys creating this new experimental sound and then we didn't know how to do it. Being a band is a different thing. A bunch of producers in a studio can create a sound. They can do and write songs and so on and so forth. Becoming a band that people love is a different thing. You have to go out together. I think it helps that everyone's like a partner in it, I think it helps when everyone has like something they want to say with their instrument. This isn't always the case, by the way. There's a lot of bands out there that this is not the case. But that we took that into, that became so strong, we became so powerful in that. You put Orgy on a stage, we would destroy that venue. I mean, we would crush it, we would sell it out. The band, we'd go up there and come down drenched with sweat. We would sell, you know, $15,000 in merch. We would just destroy every night. That was the thing that pushes this over the top. You can have a hit song and not have that, right? And you're not going very far, I'm sorry. But it doesn't work really the other way around. You can have a great band and no hit song, right? It's not going to really happen too. What made that really special was that it turned out that the whole experiment worked. So we came into Vapour Transmission all really kind of being very good at what we do. So even though it was a fucking, disaster and we were extremely undisciplined and frankly lots of drugs, lots of partying, lots of everything, you can't mention any of the first two Orgy albums and even the last one and not acknowledge that was a serious problem. You can't. We were young guys partying. Some were worse than others, and I'll be one of the worst. I'm totally cool with that. I don't give a shit. I'm sober now. I went through rehab, everything. You can't divorce the making of these albums from our drug problems. You cannot. So without going deeper into it, let's just say all of this was a problem. It was something that made it disjointed, disorganized. Just looking at the way that we work now, we've produced probably about 50 songs, and we put out 7 or 8 albums. One of them was 4 albums in one, 4 discs. In the time since we've been in Orgy, from Dead by Sunrise with Chester Bennington to many Julian K albums to multiple albums produced, full albums of other artists, and a bunch of singles and even more business ventures since then. So it really does speak to the, we come in and we play, we spend time working like it's a job. It's still fun. We're still having a good time. We're experimenting and everything. But what we're not doing is we're not doing drugs and staying up all night in this completely disorganized fashion, not finishing ideas and just cranking out lots of good ideas that never get finished and never go to market. We're in a really, really healthy, we make an album and we do a lot of touring and then by the time, like in between that touring, we're making a new album. That way, right when the next year comes up, we've got new material about ready. And that's our virtuous cycle that we're in now. Orgy was very much in that old Motley Crue, fucking cycle. That's who we learned from, was Motley Crue and Korn and, and everyone, by the way, all as bad as we were, right? So I just think that, in Vapour Transmission, we sort of came back from this tour, super confident, really good at being Orgy. And then we're home and we have money and we're in a mansion. And I just think that I honestly think at the end of the day, that was really got in the way of us, I think, pushing it further. I think that it could have gone further. I think we could have been more honest with ourselves. I think we could have,
We actually created more music on that record than we did on the first record.
Yeah.
The first record, everything that was created is pretty much on the record. There really wasn't much of anything left over. There's a couple little tidbits. But the second record, there was actually a lot left over. I mean, there's probably an entire CD of music that did not get finished. Some of which actually got used later. But yeah, I mean, we were working towards making that record really something,
Yeah.
And I mean, you can tell by the sales of that record, it just didn't deliver, and it didn't in the full aspect of it. I'm not saying I don't love the record, because I do. But I think everybody, including myself, really wanted to see that go a bit farther. And by the time we got to the third record, we were pretty much destroyed as a band. I mean, that I think the second album really, there were aspects like kind of what you were getting at that, started to really, the band started imploding a bit.
Yeah.
I think at that point, by the time we got to the third record, the band had fully imploded.
I think that the when I'm thinking about, we feel like it could have gone further, I think the idea is that when you have as big of a first record as we had, and you can say an album like didn't deliver, when we had a gold album. You know what I mean? So but for us, that's not good because we had more than platinum. So, you know, it's definitely not a failure. We had, you know, a hit song or 2 hit songs on it. So that's all good. But I think that what we needed to do was we needed to do something transcendent. You know, we actually needed to deliver something that became like that literally took it further. It went higher than Blue Monday. It bridged the gap and went to, you know, genres and hit other worlds that we were sort of set up to hit. You know, and I think that that's what we mean when we say that we felt like it could have gone further. I think that there could have been some songs on there that were transcendent, that really became, that just kind of, you know, I don't know. I think that really hit harder even than Blue Monday, and you know that was ours to kind of lose.
Yeah,
really, and you know it still worked. We still did great, but again, you know, in this game, when you have the success we had on Candy Ash, you really kind of have to.
Well, you don't get second chances.
Yeah, you have to transcend. You have to transcend.
You got to hit the ball out of the park every time.
Yep.
You know, and. You know, there's definitely moments on that record that I think we were really, really getting there too. You know, because I actually think Eyes Radio Lies is also a very strong song.
I think that could have been a single.
But you know, the process of putting that song together also
very, very difficult.
You know, was a thing. You know,
very difficult.
I remember being in the studio alone with David Kahn, the producer who actually oversaw that particular song. And, you know, there were a lot of things that needed to get done to get that song across the finish line. And it just was one of those 11th hour, you know, in the mix kind of deals. But I think, you know, obviously it was worth it. I love that song.
Me too.
Yeah.
I think it's a very cool song. It's something different, but yet it's commercial.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny how someone like David Kahn really kind of understood us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's an amazing producer in his own way. I mean, he had some very interesting ideas. I remember there was that one thing in Fiction that I personally still think should have stayed. He did a little key change before the last chorus.
Oh, I remember that.
And there's a version of it, I think, on the Fiction single, I think.
Wow.
But there's a part where he does a key change right before the last chorus. It's just one bar. And I was just like, oh my God, that is so genius. And no one else liked it.
Yeah.
And to this day, every time I hear it, I'm just like, oh man. I mean, it doesn't matter in the big picture of the song. But I remembered that, and I've used that, like, in my own productions, you know, the things that I've learned from him and many others. But it was just one of those moments where I was just like, you know, why didn't that stay? You know, like, that was a very smart thing.
I'm going to have to go back and listen to that. I remember that.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to see if it still makes me feel like, you know, because I'm
Well,
sure it did.
That's exactly what it was supposed to do, though.
Yeah.
It takes you out of the song just for a moment, but then it puts you back in a way that you haven't heard before. And I was just like, holy shit, this is genius. But everybody else vetoed it.
Is that kind of how back in this like time and place of Orgy it worked? It was a group dynamic, or how they
It was always a group. Yeah, it was always a group dynamic. Absolutely.
Yeah, with videos, with the music, with the look, everything was, you know, we all voted on everything, and you know, major decisions. You know, a lot of times our management and people around us, you know, the label actually was insanely behind what we were doing and really let us do our thing.
Yeah.
And that's so rare.
Yeah.
So I'll always be grateful for that, because
and it helped that Korn was also like
that
such
too.
a driver. You know?
But they were also part of our label.
Sure.
So
They were our label.
Yeah. So,
but there was a label, Reprise, Warner Brothers, behind the whole thing, right?
But
and they were on board.
Everyone there really got what we were doing, and really, for the most part, stayed out of the way, which is so rare.
Yeah.
Now, management, a little bit different, but, you know, they had their reasons, we had our reasons. So, a lot of that was very helpful too. So I'm very grateful to Jeff and Peter and
Yeah, absolutely.
Gail. You know, I mean, we wouldn't have had the success without them,
No.
without the label, without, you know, everybody that was involved. None of that would have happened without all of us working together to get it to where it got to. It just wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have. There's no way.
I think Vapour Transmission is kind of a great product of its time with regards to that turn of the century where there was still labels and big money investment in really unique, amazing projects. ORGY,
Yes.
perfect example of that. Like the scale of everything on Vapour Transmission, at least from a fan's point of view, seemed really grandiose. And you've got that major label backing it and supporting it. I think it was almost like the tail end of that type of investment.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. We were probably one of the last bands to get,
Yeah.
you know, a music video that was many, many zeros
Yeah, that music video
at
is
the end of the
crazy.
cost. Yeah, and you know, and you look at the video, and it's still pretty damn rad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so cinematic. I guess I had a question about that. Like, did that, because video shoots are such a different thing to the finished product in many ways. Like, but did that still feel like a really big moment for the band? Was that relevant?
Yeah.
Or was that prevalent? I mean, like on set, that wow, this is going to be
Yeah.
so.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, it was when VFX were first like really coming of age, and they were still very expensive. So some of those shots with the kind of the clones or the robots, what are the androids sort of populating that like cylinder and all the stuff that we were doing those were like, to do that in a video,
It was cutting
that
edge.
was like that's going to be $100,000, you know, or however much it was, right?
Yeah.
Now I can probably do that in here, you know, but there's a lot of stuff that we can do now in this room. We've done again, probably 290 pieces works that are out in the popular people like from here, you know, so that's different. That's different now. But yeah, it was a big fucking deal that we were doing VFX in a music video, like a cinema, like a movie.
We had a sound stage,
Yeah.
like a real movie sound stage that everything was practical.
Yeah.
Everything was built. Everything you see us on, all those rooms,
Yeah.
all the things, they were all built out in a giant, just like, you know, Star Wars was made in these things. And they used miniatures for the ships. So they literally had cameras flying into, you know, miniature models of spaceships and stuff like they did in, you know, the old sci-fi movies, which to me still I love.
Still looks the best.
Yeah, I love the way that looks because it looks so real if it's done right, you know.
Well, you look at even like I watched this thing with Inception the other day, like how they were doing the VFX, and they still do. They do, you know, with the city like rolling and everything. That's practical. So they built a model of essentially, but without all the detail of the city, and then rolled it like with real water and stuff. And then they went in VFX and then added the details to the buildings and everything like that. And I was like, that's why that looks so
Insane.
like shockingly good.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think that with everything we've done, even to this day, we always keep that in mind, that we always would almost rather use something that's real.
Yeah.
You know, rather than, you know, making some digitized asset or, yeah, I guess now AI is going to be the thing. You know, we still believe that even in an age of AI, something bespoke means handmade, right? Something handmade is going to become even more precious because as AI will become vanilla, we want to be peanut butter and chocolate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
We want to be that delicious, perfect combination with a little bit of salt. You know, we don't
practical
want to be
effects-
vanilla.
Practical effects are so not cost effective nowadays.
Yeah.
So, you know, you just don't see it enough. I mean, it would be cool if somebody went in and said, you know what, I'm going to make this whole movie like the way that they used to make science fiction movies, you know, and only use the digital effects to enhance that.
Yeah, well, that is
which
yeah.
right, but I'm saying do
he's
an
one
entire.
he's one of the only directors.
Yeah.
No, he does the whole
Oh.
things. He's all practical.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So, what's the movie about the nuclear wet bomb and everything? That was all practical. Like, what's the what's the guy's? I'm spacing on his name.
Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, Christopher Nolan. Yeah, he's a practical guy.
That's
but
right.
that's why those movies
about
look
that.
so heavy. Like
Yeah.
they're just so powerful, you know. So it really
and
matters.
That
I
stuff
think.
resonates with audiences still. They're like
Totally.
the blockbuster movies. But I mean, that's also why then Dreams in Digital.
Well, we were-
so good still.
Yeah.
We really had nothing holding us back.
Yeah.
To be honest, when we did
Well, except
that
for
record.
our own attitudes and drug
I'm-
problems.
Yeah. That part, yeah. But I'm saying as far as like outside of those problems and the things that were going on, everything was there at our disposal.
Yeah.
And that's why I always kind of say, like, I feel like we could.
Yeah.
Because we really had the world at our feet at that point.
Yeah.
And it's like, it was ours to fuck up.
What's crazy too is that after that album, which again was not a failure, but it's when you compare it to album one, there's a famous quote that Madonna said, and it resonated with me when we were going through all this. And Madonna was like, "Yeah, I've sold 100 million albums, and I have an album that comes out that's platinum, and that's a failure."
Yeah.
Because it's not 20x platinum, and I'm like, "Oh, that's not a fucking failure." So. But anyways, you get the context, right? Well, we still, even on album 3, we still had label support. We had studio, they were still down to we could have still done it, We still had an opportunity to do it, But at that point, I think the system was so broken down, It's just some of the drug issues just got so bad, and people weren't showing up, and you gotta all be on the same page to get these things done and make it cohesive and make it push to to a new boundary.
Yeah, the whole thing
be
just
transcendent.
It just derailed at that point, unfortunately.
So was Vapor Transmission kind of like the last example of?
I think so, of actually
cohesive?
Orgy.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think that Punk Static was really an Orgy album. I think that it was. That's a whole other session, and I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus. I throw the whole band under the bus, but I can give you a lot of reasons why. But no, that wasn't the band Orgy going, let's do something groundbreaking. That wasn't that. And Vapor Transmission was, we just got off tour. We are going to destroy. We're going to put out an album that's just like peak Orgy. And, in a lot of ways, I think we did that.
Yeah.
I just feel like Amir that there could have been a couple of songs that were transcendent. I think that Eva could have been that song. I think we could have gone further. Mm-hmm. What that means, I can leave to the listener's imagination. Yeah. But you can hear. There will be. I'll give you a big commercial example. There are times where Linkin Park had been in that position. Say they had a very successful album, and they had another album that was did really well, and then maybe a third album where they really had to be transcendent to step up to that next level. That's what I mean. You can't necessarily define it with a dictionary term of the songwriting, but what I mean is that we could have done that.
We didn't create Meteora.
Yeah.
It wasn't. We didn't make that progression that way. But anyway, we can move on from all that talk. I still love the record. I'm still very proud of it.
Same.
There's so many amazing elements about how that album has stood the test of time. There are a lot of people that is their favorite record. Yeah. So I don't want those people to feel jilted by my comments, but I'm being honest here, and I'm just telling you how I feel, and what the process was, and how we got to where we got. And there's a lot of things at play when you're in a band, and especially when you're successful. And there's a lot of pressures. We were probably getting ready to do a tour. It's like, we really need to get this record out by this time so that, and it's like, there's always kind of some compromises made because of that, and it sucks that you sometimes have to be sort of pressured into that. But at the same time, I also think we could have been a lot more efficient.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but whose fault is that? Well, it's all our faults. There's just no way around that, because, it is what it is. But I love the record. There's definitely things about it that I like a lot better than the first record.
Totally.
There's definitely things that were captured on the first record, though, that just, you're never going to capture that again. That was, there was some lightning in a bottle, and the second record has that too, but in a different way.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of both of those records, and I'm really stoked that people are still listening and still, it's pretty much a regular occurrence that someone says something about the things that we did in Orgy, how much they loved Orgy. all the elements, you know.
901,000 listeners a month on Spotify.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
Almost a million.
It's up. I mean, it's just insane. That's like currently right now with, not yeah. I'm looking like at what is streaming. I'm looking at it right now over here. It's all of our original shit, and it's like pretty it's pretty amazing, it's pretty amazing. I mean, some of these have like, the numbers that are like massive hit numbers, and it's wow, thank you. This is so cool.
Yeah, I mean, in layman's terms with vapor transmission, you kind of hinted towards it before, and I think this is what you could say about it. Like, it feels like ORGY as a band, even just in terms of talking about the guitar sound or the guitar synth sound really coming through in such a different way than what it did on Candy Ass. Mm-hmm. And Candy Ass is that lightning in a bottle, and there's a lot of different factors which make that album so unique. But yeah, when I think of ORGY and I think of Vapor Transmission, I'm like, this feels like a band.
It's defined.
Yeah.
It's defined.
In a lot of ways, it's peak ORGY.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
When you said that before. Yeah, it's almost like ORGY on steroids.
Just because we talk like two producers and songwriters, professional producers and songwriters, which we are, and guys who still play 100 shows a year, like to this day, all over the world. We are hard on ourselves. We are hard on what we're doing right now. What we're doing in Julian K is we're not stupid. We don't think that this is the old world where we've got this big label behind us and it's going to be this ORGY level. Like, I'm looking at one of these songs right here has 89 million plays, not 89,000 or 8,900. The next one below it has 18,193 plays. The next one below that has 10,500,000. Okay, so anyways, the point is that's like stratospheric off the radar. That's just insanity. That's the kind of numbers that bands that the biggest bands right now in the world have. And what we're doing is not going to be that because we're this independent band. But we're still trying on every record, now in a we really are trying to go, okay, how can we be transcendent? How can we do something? How can we own our category harder? How can we deliver something that the fans, we know they're going to love, but we're going to take the songwriting up to another level? How can we be hookier? And, I think that it's a bummer because ORGY could be on album 8 now, or 9.
Yeah.
And can you imagine how good that original band would be if we were, we're still, I still have, it's kind of funny, right over in their corner, I have a bunch of the effects that I used on some of the first stuff. And some of this stuff, let me get something.
Yes.
So, just to tell you, like, you can see this right here. This is what I use for the intro of Stitches. Okay, it's that weird sound. This says do-it-yourself exorcism. I put I made that myself, cut it out of a magazine in my first band in Bakersfield, California. Before I ever knew Amir and Jay and all this kind of stuff. So this is probably 35 years old. It didn't make it to a hit album. It took like 10 years. Actually, this might be 45 years old, 40 years old. I mean, I'm not kidding because these weren't new when I got it. And here's like a Korn backstage pass. And here's my little writing. It says Ryan ORGY when I joined ORGY, or when we created ORGY, and it's like these settings are still they're marked because these settings, if you play this, it will sound like the beginning of Stitches.
That was probably marked from like the very first time we worked in Josh's garage or something.
So it's like just to show you like how long, like I have effects pedals and stuff over there that I had in like Taft, California, and it's like, and they've come all this way. You can imagine if we were still using all of these tools to do ORGY together, how powerful it would be.
Well,
it would just be so amazing. It would have evolved.
Yeah,
and then transcended.
Yeah, exactly.
That part of it, does bum me out because I would love to have seen where ORGY could have gone with all of us together, staying on that path.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody wouldn't have liked that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
it's become more apparent than ever, as people love what we did. So it's just, they just do, they come up to us at our shows all the time and tell us that they've, thank God they love Julian K, but they many of them loved us since Orgy for almost 27 years. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, of course, an orgy has that rotating door of band members when it comes to orgy these days. But with the two of you kind of like here right now in this moment with so much dense, rich history, I mean, how would you describe your relationship both as guitarists and creatives? And not only like, what has it taken to make that relationship survive, but to prosper over the years?
One of the things I think is that we kind of both know our strengths and weaknesses. So we help each other in that realm. Where I can carry the torch over this way, he can do things that I can't do going that way. And to me, that's always what makes a great band, is that you have all these people, and certain people are good at this, certain people are good at that, but when you put them all together, it creates something more than the one or two or three or whatever it is, right? And Ryan and I have been, I guess, smart enough or stupid enough, if someone wants to say so, to stay together all these years because we like working together, and we've learned our little idiosyncrasies between each other, but at the same time we can work together and be very brutally honest with each other. We're writing ideas and it'll just be like, oh, I don't like that. Like next, and then it's like, okay, how about this? How about this? How about this? And you just keep going, you keep going. But we're actually, business wise and all of that stuff, I think that's where we really connect as well, because I like to think we're pretty smart about how we do things. I mean, we're a small band, but yet, here we are. And we're very prolific. We've done a lot of touring now, and we've been very lucky. We've had a lot of awesome breaks, and we're very grateful for all the things that have happened, to this little band, Julian K.
I think that one thing that you have to do, like in any long relationship, especially a working business and creative relationship, is, we can certainly, I can be very annoying, all of that's going to happen. That's just life. But we agree on principles. We agree on the core principles of what it is we're trying to do. And we're also not afraid to be honest about what we're doing, so what do I mean by that? It's taken a really, really long time to get to a point that we are even at now, where, we're doing a lot of stuff, like a lot of shit. We're managing a lot of stuff. We're essentially self-managed. We are our own label. We are cranking out, regularly cranking albums out. We're touring all over the world. We may, depending on midway through this year, we may be booked through 2027, with touring all over the planet, so there's a lot of things that are happening that used to be 19, 20 people in an office managing, for our careers. We're doing all this now, and that really just takes, I think there's a level of that I think in Orgy we didn't have. It didn't exist in the band. There's a level of straight up like non-ego honesty. I'm completely comfortable. I mean, I can walk into a room and be like, hey, I'm not good at this. Like, this is something Amir will kill. This is where he's, we don't mind this stuff. There are things that I can take, I'm good at taking the lead on. And like Amir just said, I think that, if you're going to be successful and you're going to last, you have to understand that not everything's going to be even all the time. Not everything's going to, there's going to be parts of the business that some people shine and don't. None of it really matters, because you have to understand something that Till Lindemann told me about Rammstein. He said, we need all the fingers of the fist to be as powerful as we are. We need every bit of it. That guy told me that not 25 years ago. He told me that 5 years ago. Right. When I was in Berlin hanging out with them, and we were chatting about all of this, about how to stay a unit. And I think that, you just have to understand that it is, when you create something as special as, say, Orgy, or as special as Julian K, Julian K is still the core of the band. We have had other members, but the funny thing is all those members still work with us.
Yeah.
Every single one of them still create with us in the studio. We still do stuff. So maybe we tour with Galen, Amir, and Ryan, and Foo, but Amir, Ryan, and Foo are still the guys from album one that have written all of it as a team together. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's still this original thing.
Well, the other thing is that...
And that's powerful. That's very powerful. We believe that principle.
Yes.
We believe it. That's what we believe.
I definitely believe that.
You know?
The other thing is that all of us have each other's backs.
Yeah.
Like 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, there has been so many times just in this band, not even including some other bands that we've done, where, you know, everybody looks out for each other, and there's been some rough times.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's real easy for people to jump ship
Yeah.
or to point fingers or whatever it is. And we always come together and we get through it. Mm-hmm. And that's the difference. You know,
that's a good point.
That didn't happen in Orgy, unfortunately.
When you apply pressure and people break apart, it's weak. You know, and I think people have applied pressure to us, and we get tighter and get our armor up, and you know. But I think even to that, speaking to that armor fighting, we're all of this now. It's so much more like we can become rocks, and the water is going to go around us. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We can make it through until it calms again. You know, we don't. We definitely now don't get ourselves into as many situations that are going to prove to be like, you know, adversarial and all this kind of stuff. We're much better at kind of doing our thing and being true to who we are and just moving forward with our business. That's a big deal.
Unfortunately, I think the fame and success and some degree the money
sure
really started to dissolve the band.
Yeah, of Orgy.
Of Orgy. Yeah. You know, and that's a pretty common problem.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, through all that, Ryan and I became stronger and started to realize that we were not like that.
Yeah.
And that's why we started kind of doing some music on our own. We never planned on leaving Orgy, honestly.
We never did leave Orgy.
We never left Orgy. We are still part of Orgy, always will be. But yeah, you know, we just started doing other things because it was just, I mean, we were bored, honestly, at the time.
It got to a point where, you know, especially, I mean, there was definitely came up a time where, you know, there was just no finding Jay, and, you know, we weren't going to just keep writing music to, you know, in a void, you know, and so, you know, a good amount of time passed, and so we took some of the ideas that we were working on that we would have brought to Orgy, and that kind of sort of became Julian K. And I think that through that period, you know, through all that, we just started realizing, we were like, man, you know, it was just too bad that that under pressure it breaks apart rather than gets stronger, you know. And I think we've carried that with us.
Well, I think that's what formed what we did, is because we actually got stronger and just decided, like, yeah, we're not going to stop.
Let's keep going.
You know, whatever it is, we're not going to stop, even if this doesn't work anymore, which is unfortunate, and it wasn't at that time. But we're not going to stop. But we always wanted to be a part of it, and I mean, we would have gladly been a part of all of it as long as it was, you know, all the original members and things like that. I never wanted to do it without all the guys. So, I would have never done it any other way.
Yeah.
So
yeah, are there like for the fans, like any narratives or points of views or just any things with memories of Orgy that you'd like to like clarify or set straight? Not in the thing of like talking gossip or anything like that negative I'm meaning, but like just like any things you've heard over the years that you're like, actually that's not what we think and feel, this is what we actually feel about that.
I mean, I think a lot of that was already explained at this point.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, you know, I think that we've done a lot of, you know, we've talked about it pretty honestly, you know, and kind of talked about how it informs what we do now. You know, to us, this thing was always, I mean, I hear sometimes that, you know, oh, well, why did you guys, you know, quit Orgy? And well, none of us quit Orgy. No one quit, you know. And we started doing Julian K literally because we just didn't have any other way to do music. We actually didn't even know we were going to be a band. We had no plans on being
I know.
another
There's
band.
one thing. It's the time thing, that we didn't have time to do Orgy.
Oh yeah.
That's
no.
the rumor, and that's
Yeah.
because we were doing Dead by Sunrise and we were doing Julian K.
No.
But that's absolutely not true.
No.
We always.
Well, there's years in between that span, so
Yeah.
we literally kind of were twiddling our thumbs for
We were just
for years.
We're always going to move forward, no matter what.
Yeah.
That's just how we are, at least the two of us. So we're always going to continue to move forward. And, we would have loved to move forward with Orgy, but it just, at that point, there was nothing happening. So we just didn't want to sit around doing nothing. So we started doing stuff, but it ended up being a record with the singer of Linkin Park, and it ended up being a record with Ryan singing and Julian K, and what we did, on the side, basically, because there wasn't anything else to do, and we were having fun doing these projects. But didn't mean that we didn't have time to do anything else. I mean, all of us, I was producing records with other bands, and there's always time that you can do stuff, but the problem was it just wasn't happening. So we just kept doing that, because why wouldn't you do that, And like I said, I know for myself, I'm not interested in really going backwards. I'm always going to go forward. That doesn't mean that I wouldn't, play with any of my previous bands, because I have. I even did some shows with my band Rough Cut from the 80s. We did
Wow.
Monsters of Rock, and it was awesome. It was awesome to do that. But, it's not my career path for the rest of my life. But I enjoyed doing it, Unfortunately, Orgy isn't my career path anymore because it's not an option.
Yeah, it's just not an option that's available to us. So I think that we pretty firmly believe that if you're gonna, Orgy to us is the original band.
Yeah,
and
it's got to be all the original guys.
It really does have like a unique. It sounds like something that doesn't exist, and that's really important. Is just our position. So that's what we would, we would be available for something like that in a sane way at any time, really.
I mean, we had we played a couple songs with Bobby and Paige on New Year's, and it was amazing. It was so fun.
Yeah. Super fun.
So fun to just be in the room together and be able to play together again.
We thought that Jay was going to come. He had said that he was going to come, and I was going to go, okay, guess what? You're walking on stage with us, and we're going to play as the original band. But he didn't come. So
Bummer.
Yeah, it would have been cool. Would have been super cool.
Yeah.
But anyways, I mean, it's, other than that, I mean, it's just, I don't think there's a lot of I don't know, there's always going to be misinformation and stuff out there, but that's the way we feel and how we've evolved into what we're doing now and so on and so forth. I guess that's the most common thing that I hear that I would want to clear up, I guess, but.
Yeah. Well, to wrap things up then, in terms of those decades of retrospect, how would you say, it's a two-part question, the legacy of your work within Orgy, how does that sit with you today, and how do you reflect on that? And also just where does Vapour Transmission sit for you guys, kind of both personally and creatively within your extensive back catalogue of amazing work?
Peak Orgy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, it's just I think
the pinnacle. For me, it's the kind of the pinnacle of where the band was at that point in all of our careers. We were starting to play arenas as a headliner and things like that, and I look back at that and I'm just like, wow, we were very lucky that we had gotten to that point. I'm very proud of that, and it's I mean, it's something I'm very proud of, those pieces of art, because that's what they are to me. It's music, but there was a lot that went into those records, like you said, visually, and it was kind of an art project. Those records, and that's something you don't see a lot. I
think that it's just now recently becoming to a point for me where I'm it's been a long time, and these fans come up to us a lot and ask us, hey, can you guys play? We want to hear some Orgy, we want to do all this stuff. it's finally kind of hitting me that, with all the work that we've done from Dead by Sunrise to Orgy to all this kind of stuff, it's now fun to go back and play the songs, for special occasions and all that kind of stuff. Play Dead by Sunrise or celebrate Chester, and play some of the Orgy songs and celebrate, Orgy, and really just be happy and stoked about these things that we were part of creating, and celebrate them now. And I'm really comfortable doing it now, and yeah, I don't know. I think that it's now something that I look back at as these important pieces of art that we created, like Amir said, and I can pull ideas and examples out of that work, and I can look back at the things I learned from those pieces of work, and really kind of draw a line from that into where we are now. And I think it's really come full circle for me.
I mean, I'm super grateful for all the opportunities that it's created in my life, getting to the point where I, finally had some records that were that successful, and, having fans and all of this stuff. I'm super grateful for all those people that still follow us now, and all the things that have come out of that. Obviously, I mean, it was a highly successful time for all of us, and everyone should be grateful for it.
Yeah, amazing. It sounds like it's like the best place you guys can be in with regards to that.
It's pretty good right now.
Yeah,
it's pretty good right now.
Yeah, which is really nice to hear. And of course, that's like would make the fans so happy as well that have like been with you through the decades. It's been quite a journey, and so on behalf of those fans and the Life is Peachy podcast, just really want to say a big thank you for your time and energy and looking back on this part of your life and this album. It really means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us. Yeah, thanks for being there and caring, and we appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Amazing. Do you guys, in your own way, like when the 25th anniversary happened last year, did you? This is just can be off the record as well, but did you do anything personally, like within yourselves? Did you give the album a spin or anything like that to listen to it again?
I listened to it, but honestly, it's one of those things because it's really, really, it's just shocking to me. I don't care if this is on or off the record. It's shocking to me that like the smartest thing to do would be to, get the original band together, drop all the bullshit, and play Candy Ass front to back with an encore of the top Vapour Transmission songs. It's just, this is what you do. We could have played 80 shows and people would be so floored, to see that. And so to me, we're in the business right now in our band of really having this real relationship with our fans, like doing things that we know that they'll love. And I know what the Orgy fans would love.
Yeah, I actually, so both the albums were put out on vinyl recently, and so it was fun to get those, and actually I did put the records on, and it was, I hadn't actually listened to a lot of it in a long time, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, I remember that. That's pretty weird. Like, there were things about it where I was kind of like, wow, this is like some crazy shit going on here. Like, it's pretty cool. Like, for the fact that these records were so successful, that's why, I keep saying it's like an art project, but, we're doing like really weird stuff.
It's cool.
You don't normally get away with stuff like that and sell millions of records.
Yeah, for sure.
That's like not common.
Yeah. I think it's just the whole thing. You have these anniversaries of the album, and honestly, the demand is there, but the demand, unfortunately, is there mostly for the real band. Because the version of it right now, I don't think that it's, they're not able to really tour extensively. And, you can get some big shows and some big opening slots because the name is still big. But, the proof's in the pudding when you try to book 100 shows as you.
Yeah.
Whether or not it works. You know what I mean? So, and I can say that because we're doing it, so it's just like, a band like Julian K is never going to get some of these big things that, festival things that Orgy could get because we don't have big hit songs like that.
Well, we didn't come from that era.
Yeah, we didn't come from that era. So, but you can't you can't have a career off doing a couple festival dates in a year. You can do it, or like you get a big opportunity here or there. at the very bottom of the ticket. It's just not going to lead to, for us right now, we live off this shit. This is like what we do. We have other businesses and stuff, but like right now we're in Julian K. We're bigger than we've ever been. We're touring more than we've ever toured, and we're doing better than we've ever done. Our music's doing better than when we came out. So it's just like, that's sort of the slow, real build that we're sort of doing now. With Orgy, you have millions of people who love that music. What do you think they want? I think that they probably would like to see the band, the whole thing. That's really what's up.
They want to see me walk out with my Roswell star dressed,
they do.
dressed
they
in
do.
a spacesuit.
They do. They do.
Of course they do.
They do. And on and on and on. That's what they want to see, and they want to hear these songs that we wrote.
Yeah, well, I mean, like on paper, it seems like a simple thing, right? But obviously, there's like a lot of factors.
A fucking no-brainer.
Yeah.
A no-brainer. Yeah, it's a mother of no-brainers. Yeah.
Yeah, but obviously, there's like a lot of things involved to make that happen, and not happen as well. But I could also imagine that at this point in time in your life, it would just be fun for you to play those songs again.
Hey, it was so fun. It was so fun. We played them for New Year's. Yeah, it was great. It was super fun. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. That's amazing. Well, guys, thank you so much again.
Thank you so much, brother.
I really appreciate making the time for this. It means a lot.
Yeah, thank you. I know it takes time to put these things together. I listened to some of your other podcasts, so
this has just been such an honor to have the opportunity to sit with you guys. Yeah, I'm stoked. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, brother. Awesome. Same. Thanks, bro. All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
Take care.